you stumble through the darkest corners of the world, you never know what nightmares you may come across, or even find yourself in. There are stories out there that'll chill you to the bone, and there are people out there that will make you think twice about who you meet in everyday life. So welcome to my world, Horror Motives, where you will find your fear, and you won't sleep so easy at night, with horrifying experiences and close encounters that you could only imagine. Join us and discover the real horrors that roam this world, and remember, fear lies within. To join us in the darkness and never miss a spine-chilling video, hit that like button, subscribe, and share to become part of Horror Motives and feed your fears that lie deep within. I'm 20 years old now, and this incident happened to me 13 years ago when I was 7, and has stuck with me all these years as one of the scariest moments of my life. When I was 7, I used to live in Toronto, Canada. It was a normal Friday. I woke up early in the morning and went to school with my younger sister. She was about 5 years old at the time. There was a circus in town, and that would be held on the evening of that Friday in our city. Everyone was excited about it and talking about it at school. All of my friends were going to the circus that night, and so was I. I remember I couldn't contain my excitement. My sister loved the circus, and when she found out that it was in our city, she kept begging our parents to take us, and they agreed. The day passed by quick, and it was finally evening. We all got ready and left for the circus. It wasn't that far from our house, about a 15-minute drive away as far as I remember. Me and my sister were probably overly excited, to the annoyance of our parents. When we got there, it was pretty amazing for a kid that age. There were rides, clowns, animals, and a lot of exciting things for us to do. As soon as we reached the entrance, we couldn't decide what to do or where to go first, as there were a lot of options. I remember we took a couple of swings, played a few games, and then went to get some cotton candy. There was quite a big queue, but people were leaving fast, so we didn't have to wait long. After we got our supplies, my sister and I were sharing it, as it was pretty big. As we stuffed our face with candy, something caught the attention of my sister. She pointed her finger in a direction and asked, "Is that a clown?" I looked in that exact direction, and I saw a clown sitting on a bench, crying. My sister advised that we should go up to him and offer him some of our candy. We both went to him, and my sister said hi. As soon as she said that, the clown stopped crying and made a happy face. I offered him candy, and he accepted it. He ate the whole thing. My sister and I started giggling, thinking that he must be really hungry. After he was finished eating, he started laughing and took something out of his bag. It was a balloon. He blew it up and made it shaped like a dog and handed it over to my sister. We both got excited and loved it. He made us laugh for a while by doing silly things. After a couple of minutes, we heard our parents from behind us telling us that it was time to leave. We both waved goodbye to the clown and began to leave. As we did, I looked back and noticed the clown staring at us from a distance. He was no longer smiling and watched our every move. We reached the car and went back home. We had our dinner and went to bed. It was late that night when my sister came to my room and woke me up. She told me that the clown was outside the window of her room. I looked at her confused as to what she was talking about. So I went back to her room, and to my surprise, the same clown was staring right at us from the window. I was curious to how it got there and why it was there, and then it started making silly faces again, and we started laughing. It kept making funny gestures and faces, and we laughed. When our laughter got louder, he told us to be quiet, and we both stopped laughing instantly. He kept looking at us with a serious face, and we remained quiet. Then he gestured and whispered to me to open the door and let him in so we could play together. I told him to wait there and that I would go ask permission from my parents, but he told me to stop instantly and not to inform our parents, as they wouldn't let us have all the fun that clowns can have. I then went to the main door and sneakily opened it so he could come in. He came inside and I closed the door behind him. He asked me where my sister was, and I told him that she was in her room. I guided him to the room, and we all sat down and started playing with her toys. It was fun, but after a while he got up and so did we. He was reaching for something in his bag, and we were both excited to find out what it was this time. But as he looked back at us, his smile had disappeared. He took out an object and hit me with it and pushed me away. I tripped on something and fell to the floor, startled. As I looked up, I saw him grab my sister and start to make a run for the door. I was soon full of fear as I realized what was going on, and I screamed at the top of my voice as my sister began to cry hysterically. Luckily, our screams woke our parents, with my dad rushing down from their bedroom. As soon as the clown heard the footsteps, he left my sister and ran out of the front door and vanished. My dad ran out of the front door looking for this intruder as our mother shortly followed, grabbing my sister. We told them what had happened, and my dad informed the police. The police came over and we told them everything in detail about the clown at the circus and how he was at our house, what he looked like, and everything we could. They looked around but didn't find anyone. The very next day, the police went to the place where the circus was being held and told the management of the incident with the clown. The management told them that no such clown was a part of their staff, that they only had 3 clowns working there and dressed nothing like how was described. To this day, clowns still freak me out, even though I was only a kid at the time, and I have never been so gullible since. I dread to think of what could have happened to my sister that night. I have never been so trusting since, and neither me or my sister go anywhere where there are clowns. I was 21 years old, and I lived in a town not too far from Austin, Texas. Our town was small and consisted of only a few thousand locals. Summer had just passed, and we were entering winter. I had spent the entire summer doing my night job at a local bar. I was 21 years old, and it was my first job working in a bar. It was just part-time for some extra money. All I was required to do was to pour drinks, wait tables, and also to have some fun. And I did find the job enjoyable. Tips were good, and the only negative was late finishes most weekends. One night, I finished work at the bar and left for home around 12 a.m. It was dark that night. The road which led to my house was quite dreary. I was walking while listening to my music when I heard an awkward laugh. I stopped in my tracks, surveying the areas as I was sure I knew what I heard. But then, as I looked, I couldn't see anything or anyone. I thought that perhaps the laugh was just my imagination playing tricks on me. I stood there in silence for a few seconds, but there was no sound at all. I shook my head and brushed it off, blaming myself for overthinking things, so I carried on walking home. The next evening, my shift started at 5 p.m. I was heading up the same road towards the bar when I neared the same area I thought I heard the laugh the night before, which was strange because I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I continued to walk quickly, with my mind playing tricks on me, when my name was shouted out from behind. I turned to see it was a guy called Tom, who I worked with at the bar, and he offered me a lift down the road, which was great and saved me walking the rest of the way. A young woman walking down the road alone you might think is stupid, but it was a quiet town and nothing bad ever really happened. Most of the people in the area knew of each other. That night, when I finished up work, I was taking trash out back to the dumpsters. They were situated out back by an open field that led into the woods. I was disposing of the bags when I heard a laugh. As I looked around to my surprise, I could see what seemed to be somebody dressed as a clown, crouched down looking over at me by some bushes. This did freak me out, but I acted as if I never noticed them at all. I remember thinking it's a little early for Halloween, but I knew that season was approaching and there was a craze going on at the time of people dressing up as clowns and scaring other people. I'd seen it on the news previous years and videos on YouTube. I acted normal and walked back to the bar. I walked over to my manager and let him know that there was some weirdo out back dressed up like a clown. He went out to check it out and move him on. When I came back, he told me that no one was out there and not to worry about it. It was probably just some drunken idiots trying to get a few jump scares. I laughed and agreed with him. As I grabbed my stuff, one of the other staff members offered to give me a ride home. But being me, I said no, as I knew she lived on the opposite direction and I didn't want her to go out of her way. I thanked her and said I didn't have to go that far. As I left and made my way back down the same dark road I always did, I was halfway home when I heard something behind me. There was something in the middle of the road. I didn't know what it was, and feeling slightly freaked, I didn't go near it to see. I assumed it was an animal and just sped up. I continued walking. Suddenly, I heard somebody calling my name from behind. I turned around again to see that the figure had gotten closer, and I could now see that in the middle of the road at a distance stood a clown. He was wearing a typical clown outfit, but it was tattered and stained. I knew instantly it was the same person I saw around back of the dumpsters back at work. His makeup had spread from his eyes, streaking his cheeks. His eyes were completely black on his gaunt face. How did he know my name? He inclined his head to one side and said, "You ignored me earlier. I just wanted to say, I'd like to show you something. Do you want to see a trick?" I was frightened, out of my wits. I backed away and remember saying in a shaky voice, "I don't know you, and I haven't seen you tonight." I lied. "No, it's okay. I have to go." As I began to walk faster, my pulse racing, I kept looking back. But that next moment, the events took a turn. The clown grinned and looked at me with a crazy expression and said, "Well, if you don't want to play, bitch, then I'll just have to play with you." As he said that, he pulled out a knife, and I looked at him in horror. That next moment, within seconds, he ran right towards me, cackling. As he did, inches away from me, waving his knife, I ran for my life. I yelled for help, running as fast as my limbs would take me. I heard his hurried footsteps following behind me. I was so scared. I didn't have the guts to turn around and look. I just kept running. I could feel him behind me. He was so close. I could hear his ragged breath breathing down my neck. I thought that was it. At one point, he was so close that I knew I would be in his grasp at any moment, fearing a knife would plunge into my back. Then suddenly, a beam of light flashed in my face. The next moment I saw, it was a truck. I screamed at it to stop and waved my arms urgently. Thankfully, it halted, came to a stop near me. Finally having the courage to turn around, I did, and was shocked to see that there was nobody on the road. I climbed into the truck crying, and I told the driver what had happened to me. He said he'd seen a figure running down into the woods just behind me before he had come to a stop. He called the cops immediately. I told the cops what had happened and about the clown. They searched the wooded area and found traces of footsteps not far from where he had vanished into the woods, confirming my story. That I was chased, but no clown in sight. The cops escorted me home that night, and I told my parents what happened. They never let me walk my way up the road after that. What I learned from that night was that I would never take a lonely path at night on my own. And ever since then, clowns have freaked me out, and I have never looked at them the same again. And that's gonna do it. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please let us know by liking the video. It really helps us out. And don't forget to subscribe to Horror Motives and hit the notification bell so you don't miss a thing. If you have any comments or suggestions for future videos, let us know down in the comments. Until then, the fear lies within.